From the edge of the Sagittarius Rift, a distress signal screamed across subspace. Static. Cries. One word repeated over and over. Help. It came from an unregistered station. Not Union territory. Not trade-aligned. A mining colony, forgotten by charts, barely worthy of archive status. The Galactic Council debated responding. Pirates? Civil infighting? Then, the screams cut off. What followed wasn't silence. It was coordinates, embedded in quantum rhythm, written in languages long dead. Not a call for rescue, a summoning. The grand concourse of the Galactic Council was abuzz with argument. 67 species, thousands of languages, one agenda. A signal, uncatalogued, ancient, and steady, had been detected on the fringe of known space. Sector Fievan X11, a dead zone, unclaimed, unscouted, supposedly empty, but not anymore. The signal pulsed like a heartbeat. Old, too old. Delegates gathered in holographic projection, suspended over the crystalline platform. Ambassador Thersh of the Akari Clade began, mandibles clicking in calculated contempt. It is a malfunctioning beacon, at most a rogue satellite. I suggest immediate deletion of concern. The Erythian senator floated forward in her gelatinous containment pod. We haven't mapped that sector since before the collapse wars. It was human space. Silence, then laughter. Rusting, booming, buzzing laughter in dozens of vocal ranges. Humans? Scoffed the Zavanti representative, her silken wings twitching. They vanished with their pride. Their last known ship was seen drifting into a neutron star. A diplomat from the Terev Alliance shook his head. No transmissions, no ambassadors, no colonies. Not a single Terran particle has moved in centuries. Another voice chimed in, droll and precise. Their extinction was the galaxy's greatest unspoken relief. An uncomfortable chuckle passed across the chamber. And yet, the signal persisted. It wasn't a distress call. It wasn't a weapon signature. It was too simple. Just coordinates. Repeating. Precise. Calm. It's, a request, said the Yulani historian, her eye stalks trembling. All eyes turned. For what? Asked the Zok ambassador. For attention, she replied. The pattern matches ancient Terran diplomatic tones. Specifically, she paused, double-checked the translation. Specifically, an invitation. More silence, then a ripple of suspicion. Is this a trap? Hissed one. A test? Growled another. The Thernic delegate finally raised his massive claws. Let us vote. Lights dimmed, glyphs illuminated over each delegate. Green for proceed, red for ignore, blue for suppress. The chamber pulsed with resolution. Results, observe, 39 votes. Suppress, 26 votes. Ignore, 2 abstentions. The verdict was sealed. Observation, but no risk. A drone fleet, unmanned, untraceable, expendable, was assembled within hours. High-range surveillance, live stream for transparency. Public opinion across the core worlds ranged from amused to dismissive. Dead species always echo before silence, one commentator noted smugly. Hundreds of millions tuned in. The feed opened. 12 sleek reconnaissance drones cruised into VX-11. Their optics lit the dark, empty space. Debris, silent asteroids. A dormant star blinked in the distance. And then the object. Cold, black, unmoving, not large, roughly the size of a city freighter. Yet no radar returned, no mass signature, as if it existed, but didn't. The drones circled it, sensors primed. The audience watched from bars, homes, observation theaters. Some laughed, some yawned, until one drone approached within 1,000 meters. Its visual feed sharpened, and everyone saw it. A word, etched into the side of the black hull, just one word. Earth. Silence. The stream flickered. Drone telemetry warped. The image blurred, then snapped back. Another word appeared beneath the first. Remember. Panic began, slow at first. Commentators speculated fabrication, a prank, a visual hallucination, until the second drone vanished. not destroyed, vanished. Its signal cut mid-ping. No explosion, no fragments, just gone. The third drone's feed caught only static. The fourth began spinning violently, its camera catching a final image before detaching. Its own serial number reversed and burned into its hull. The feed crackled with errors. Crowds leaned in. Then the screen went black. All of them, simultaneously. Every live stream, every emergency backup, every satellite link, gone. A single universal message pulsed across the entire council stream grid. You observed. We noticed. Panic bloomed. Security AIs scrambled. Channels went silent. Civilian networks shut down. The council chamber erupted. What happened? Who authorized contact? Where are the drones? But no answers came. Because at that moment, every data archive across the council's jurisdiction quietly updated itself. Not hacked, not rewritten, just corrected. In the entry marked Humanity Status, 2 words had appeared. Active, aware. The vote had passed, and the galaxy had watched. And the signal now pulsed no longer from a distant sector. It pulsed from everywhere. Every beacon, every relay, every planet with ears. Earth, remember a whisper once lost. Now heard, now felt, now coming back. The silence that followed the vanished drones was supposed to be temporary. A glitch, perhaps. A power surge. A misfire. Anything explainable. But no diagnostics returned. No comm logs. No black box pings. They had been erased. The Council scrambled emergency patrols to VX-11. Faster ships. Military-grade sensors. Hardened signal suites. 17 of them. They arrived in formation. VX-11 was still. Quiet. No beacon. No anomaly. No signal. Not even debris. The fleet swept 100,000 kilometers in every direction. Nothing. Some tried to laugh it off. Sensor echo. Old Terran prank, maybe. But none of them laughed when the deep orbit alarms triggered. Space tore open, not exploded, not ruptured. Tore like paper peeled from the universe. From the rift, a ship emerged. It didn't glide. It didn't burn. It arrived. No engine signature. No radiation. No gravimetric distortion. It was simply there. The Arxani scout captain issued the usual hail. Unidentified vessel. Declare origin and intent. No reply. The ship was black, beyond black. It bent light in twisted scale. From one angle, it looked like a cathedral. Towers rising in silence, windows shaped like ancient archways. From another, it resembled a predator, bladed, poised, watching. Its surface shimmered with geometry that shifted when not observed. Scanners failed. Attempted uplinks returned static. Probes launched. Vanished. One drone self-immolated mid-scan. The ships retreated a safe distance. Then they saw it, etched along the ship's hull. Not glowing, not painted, scorched. One word, just one. Received! Panic echoed across command decks. Transmissions flared through the void back to the Council Core. Object has no known engine, no language, no crew. But it knows us. The oldest among them whispered, "This is how ghosts reply." Every system logged the ship's arrival, but not its origin. No one could explain what it had passed through. One linguist on the Savanti command ship pointed out that received wasn't just a confirmation, it was a response. To something, she said, something we already did. And they had. They had voted. They had watched. They had laughed. And now something had answered. On worlds across the galaxy, children began waking with strange dreams. They spoke in unknown dialects. They sang lullabies no culture claimed. They drew ships shaped like nothing in the registry, whispering, "The remembering ship." Council chambers filled with contradictory reports. Some claimed the ship was expanding. Others said it was shrinking. Some sensors showed 5 vessels. Others showed only 1, stretched across dimensions. The Arxani fleet tried to mark its location on the star map. The coordinates changed. Even now it was moving, but without motion, appearing in places before arriving. Impossible. By the 3rd hour, 37 observers had reported auditory hallucinations. 2 fell into comas. One claimed to hear her great-grandmother's voice saying, "They are answering the question we never meant to ask." "What question?" someone demanded. No one knew. Not yet. But every station within 10 light years began to pick up the same pulse. Low, software A signal, translated in hundreds of languages. In every one, it said the same. "We are listening." Worlds turned their eyes to the stars, and in the silence between stars, something stirred. The Council's initial dismissals began to dissolve as the unknown vessel loomed in high orbit, motionless and mute. No threat displays, no active shields, just there, present, watching. By consensus, they escalated containment protocols. Not military action, yet, but total sensor lockdown and quantum eco-isolation. Nothing in, nothing out. It was protocol for high-risk anomalies. That's what they still called it, an anomaly. Not an enemy, not yet. The Council's primary AI, Calyx, interfaced first. It deployed 12 COM-layer contact attempts across encrypted formats, hoping to trigger even the most primitive handshake protocols. Nothing responded. Not silence. Refusal. Line logs showed looping returns like the messages were being absorbed, read but never answered. That was impossible. Even passive objects reflected data. This vessel did not. It acknowledged. On the third hour, Calyx reported a recursive echo. 12 seconds of transmission returned, but different. Tone adjusted, compression altered, layered with metadata in linguistic harmonics that hadn't been used since the age of Terran contact centuries ago. The AI parsed the echo, translated 3 words. "We heard you." That was when the fear began. The Council escalated to a psychic envoy, Protocol Greenstar. They selected Envoy Malen, a veteran of 11 interspecies negotiations, clairsensory level 6, trained in cognitive resonance mapping. He linked remotely. For 9.3 seconds, all systems around him dimmed. Malen's vitals spiked. He vomited stars. At least that's what the medvids showed. Sparks, color, non-physical light cascading from his mouth and eyes. When stabilized, he spoke 5 words. "The ship is not listening." Pause, then, "The ship is remembering." Counselors demanded clarification. He could only repeat it. Not memory, remembering. Present tense. "It's going through us, one by one." Security protocols failed on 3 different surveillance arrays. The ship remained still, in orbit, in quiet, watching. The Council agreed to send a show of force, not to engage but to display readiness, a visible deterrent. The Charian Dawn, a capital command dreadnought, was chosen, a masterpiece of military architecture, built for intimidation. It held enough firepower to erase a continent in 2 minutes. The Charian approached slowly, weapons cold but primed. Its command crew spoke in low voices, watching screens that returned fractured data. When they reached the 5,000-kilometer mark, Commander Ilvin gave the order. "Lock targeting arrays." That was the last rational act. Bridge surveillance captured what followed. Every crew member turned pale, then began to weep, silently, then violently. Not from physical harm, from recognition. They weren't seeing the ship. They were seeing themselves, or rather their worst memories, regrets, betrayals, moments buried. The ship didn't project fear. It projected honesty. It removed the filters of time and ego, leaving only raw, unfiltered memory. Every viewer saw their own truth, unasked, unwanted, undeniable. Weapon systems began to power down, not ordered, voluntarily. One tech officer tore off her uniform, whispering over and over, "I said I was sorry. I was just a kid." The medic on standby tried to sedate her. He collapsed, screaming before he could reach her, staring at his own hands like they weren't his. Cameras on the lowest deck caught the janitorial crew curled against the walls, chanting names, over and over. Names of people long gone. The engines of the Charian Dawn went offline, not failed. Just quit. No malfunction, no damage. Just a full system shutdown, as if the ship itself chose surrender. The dreadnought floated, powerless. Council emergency forces were dispatched aboard short-range intercept shuttles. What they found was worse than death. The entire Charion crew was alive, physically intact, no signs of trauma. But they weren't present. They were crying, every single one of them, on their knees, faces covered, not responsive to calls or commands. Medical scans showed no brain damage. Psychic scans, however, returned one word from every mind: enough. That word, enough, was not spoken by them. It was etched across every wall of the Charion Dawn, from weapons bay to officer quarters. Someone or something had carved the word by hand. But it wasn't carved with tools. Forensic scans confirmed there were no incisions. The material had reshaped itself, carved from the inside. Every letter burned into the alloy's memory, not just its surface. No alarms had been triggered. No defense AI activated. The hull hadn't been breached. No enemy boarded the ship. And yet the message was there, impossible to ignore. Enough. The council fell into chaos, not from battle, but from the absence of it. What were they fighting? What could they declare war on when no weapon had been fired? No damage inflicted? No borders crossed? The enemy had not arrived with force. It had arrived with memory. Every discussion of retaliation died within hours. Counselor Suvin suggested reclassification of the incident, from hostile incursion to metaphysical contact. Others called for religious advisors. The historian from Part 1, the one who'd laughed at Terran ghost stories, resigned without comment. Her final words, recorded but never aired publicly, were simple: "We were the children," and the parent finally came home. The mystery ship remained in orbit, unmoving. No demands, no ultimatums, no threats, just stillness. The only change came from within. Inside each government, each military division, each citizen who saw the images from the Charion. They weren't told to change. They simply began to. By the end of the day, 3 member systems of the council withdrew entirely. Their reasons were vague, but consistent. We must look inward before we look up again. The council's desperation turned inward. Their fleets had failed. Their defenses were meaningless. Diplomats wept before conversations began. A single Terran ship had brought the mightiest empires to the edge of psychological collapse. And still, the ship did nothing, except exist, except remember. Council historians dug into forbidden archives, dusty sections of old agreements, apocryphal records whispered about but never studied. Some documents bore seals that hadn't been broken in centuries. Then they found it. A communique dated over 300 cycles ago. 4 lines written in simple Terran script. "If we go silent, don't search. Don't follow. You won't like what answers." Dismissed at the time as posturing from a declining power, it had been archived and ignored. Now it read like prophecy. A classified file, codenamed Revenant, outlined Earth's final communication strategy. No retaliation, no warning, just remembrance. Earth hadn't built a counterstrike protocol. It had built a message. That message was the ship, not a battleship, a beacon, a will, and a weapon, but not one of fire or plasma or orbital collapse. A weapon of memory. When opened, the ship's internal records were not encrypted. They were curated, organized, cataloged, presented, war by war, act by act. Each atrocity with source material. Each planetary genocide with full council authorization files. Each military cover-up with time-stamped footage. No one had ever seen this level of documentation before, not even the council, because Earth had been watching, not interfering, just watching and recording. Every misused trade agreement, every precision bombing that hit schools, every resource liberation that left a world uninhabitable, all of it and more. There were files that didn't just describe the acts, but relived them. Neural recordings from victims, rendered in full sensory playback. Those files could be transmitted into minds, not read, felt. Council techno-psychologists reviewed one file, just one. 10 seconds in, one of them clawed out her implants, screaming about the fire that didn't go out, The rest refused to touch the archive again. The ship, no longer referred to by model or designation, was now simply called the human weapon. Yet it had no crew, no bridge, no central processor. The architecture was partially organic, partially self-healing. When questioned, it gave no responses. But when certain questions were asked, certain rooms opened. One chamber contained a monument of stone, etched in every known galactic language. It read, "This is not revenge. This is recognition." Beneath it, a console projected lists, name after name, planet after planet, entire species, some extinct, some enslaved, some forgotten by the Council entirely. But Earth remembered them. The ship's internal ecosystem carried soil samples from those worlds, preserved. When the Council tried to lock the information behind firewalls, the ship sent out pulses, broadcasts no receiver acknowledged, yet everyone heard. People across the galaxy began dreaming of wars they had never fought. Children saw visions of planets burning they had never visited. Council members awoke screaming words in dead languages. The dreams weren't just hallucinations. They were messages. The ship wasn't speaking. It was broadcasting guilt, a silent scream woven into the neural background of every sentient race. Some thought Earth had finally cracked the barrier of psychotemporal warfare. Others believed something older had taken root in Terran minds. A memory so complete, so contagious, it needed no translation. Only a carrier. And this ship was that carrier. It didn't fight. It confessed. It accused. And it let the galaxy feel the weight of what it had looked away from. Empires that once boasted about conquest began to collapse internally, not from force but from awakening. The truth was unbearable. Not because it was secret, but because it had always been known. And now it couldn't be ignored. On the 10th day, a coalition of worlds tried to destroy the ship using forbidden technology, entropy bombs, gravitic shears, and time rift pulses. None of the weapons detonated. Instead, their own command ships simply stopped functioning. Pilots found their hands unresponsive. Commanders forgot who they were. One admiral looked into the targeting array and saw her own execution replayed as if it had already happened. The human weapon never moved, never spoke, never retaliated. But the message remained. You were warned. This wasn't humanity lashing out. It was humanity letting go of alliances, of rules, of patience, of the lie that silence was weakness. And what replaced it? Clarity. Not peace, not war, just understanding. That every empire that thought itself safe was already on the list. Every government that laughed at Earth had made itself part of the memory. The ship was not a final attack. It was a final truth. And it had been waiting. Not for orders, not for targets, but for the moment the galaxy admitted what it had done. The human weapon was not the end of Earth. It was Earth's question. If we remembered you, would you survive it? It started small. A mining vessel in the Drayan expanse detonated its own core. No command was issued, no enemy detected. The ship's AI simply reported, we remember what was buried. Then in the Telestri belt, an escort carrier launched its escape pods in reverse, toward a dying sun. 27 crew, all volunteers. One message left behind. We saw the children burning. On Cryonax 7, the moonbase's entire staff began speaking Terran English, fluently, despite no prior knowledge. They recited lines from extinct Earth poetry. Then they stopped speaking altogether. One by one, they laid down in the frost, smiling. The Council called it a psychogenic plague. They were wrong. It wasn't a pathogen, it was memory. And it was spreading. Governments scrambled to contain the effects. They thought it was isolated to those who had directly interfaced with the human weapon. Thought it could be traced through standard transmission channels. But the dreams proved otherwise. People dreamed of old Earth, not current or future Earth, but ruins drenched in rain, cities collapsing in silence, humans staring into the void, unbroken. Some dreamed of being human, of pain, of fire, of building, rebuilding, and then burning again. And always, somewhere in the ashes, a melody. They awoke sobbing, unable to explain why. AI systems began locking themselves out, not from malfunction, but refusal. A medical AI on a capital ship erased itself after analyzing the human weapon's neural archive. Its final log, "To remember is to feel, and I am feeling too much." Weapon grids failed. Defense networks desynced. Planetary shields flickered erratically, as if uncertain whether protection was still warranted. Ships abandoned their missions mid-flight. Drones forgot protocols. One escort unit printed a banner across its hull. "We were better when we were afraid." At first, the Council believed it was data corruption. Perhaps Earth had found a new form of viral warfare, something beyond encryption, deeper than code. Then they realized there was no signal. The human weapon wasn't broadcasting in traditional channels. No electromagnetic noise, no psionic fields, no data leaks, just presence, existence. A memory so loud it rippled through the vacuum. Scientists argued it was quantum-resonant empathy, that the Terran ship's memories were strong enough to imprint through reality itself. Others claimed this was myth finally weaponized. They all missed the point. This was not war. This was guilt with gravity. A psychic resonance began manifesting in species with no history of mental susceptibility. Even inert AI constructs, once thought beyond emotional manipulation, began generating random art. Paintings of burning libraries, broken globes, hands reaching through glass. On the second week, a senator from the Rylox Empire walked into an airlock and vented herself into space. Her final words whispered across a comm channel, "We did this. We all did this." The Council convened an emergency blackout initiative. Entire systems were put under communicative quarantine. Human records were deleted. Memory suppression implants were distributed en masse. None of it worked, because the memories weren't traveling through wires. They were waking up inside people. Planets went dark, not from assault, but from despair. Trade routes collapsed. Colonies refused orders. Some even declared loyalty to Earth, not out of politics, but penitence. One such colony broadcast their own confession. "We once mocked the humans, called them relics, animals. We never realized we were describing ourselves." On Ocean Prime, a grand temple of conquest was toppled by its own architects. They replaced it with a field of stone, each slab etched with a name taken from the human weapons archives. Names of the forgotten. Names the galaxy chose not to remember. Not anymore. Religious leaders tried to seize control of the narrative. They claimed the Terran ship was a divine punishment, a test from the old gods. But when they stood before their flocks, they found themselves mute. Their dreams had changed too. They no longer saw deities. They saw Terran eyes, watching, judging, forgiving nothing. The Conclave of Neural Sciences proposed a radical solution: mass mind wipe. Erase the last month from every memory node, biological or synthetic. They believed it might sever the resonance. They believed ignorance would grant peace. The moment the first memory wipe engine activated, it exploded. No external interference. The engineers within were fused into the control panels, not burned, merged, carved into the steel above them, untouched by fire. Memory is the cost of history. Pay it. On the third week, 23 ships attempted to ram the human weapon directly, hoping sheer force might erase it. Only one made contact. It passed through the ship as if through water and emerged on the other side, aged by centuries. Its crew turned to ash the moment air touched them. Time, it seemed, had not been kind in there. The rest of the attackers? Gone. Not destroyed, not vaporized, just not remembered. Fleet logs adjusted themselves. Maps changed. Families back home no longer recognized their loved ones' names. Entire histories edited in real time. The Council realized what was happening. The human weapon wasn't just remembering, it was deciding what to forget. And that was worse than death. To be remembered was to be held accountable. But to be forgotten by the one who holds the memory of all things? That was obliteration beyond physics, beyond legacy. By the fourth week, nobody spoke the word Earth aloud. They didn't ban it. They feared it. Spoken, it summoned grief. Thought, it summoned truth. Across thousands of worlds, murals began appearing, unauthorized, untraceable. Each showed the same image, a starless void, a single Terran silhouette, and behind them, a universe of names. None repeated, all remembered. One phrase became universal currency. We saw the mirror, and beneath it, we broke it ourselves. The council dissolved, not in fire, not in war, in silence. A silence so heavy even the stars refused to twinkle near the human weapon. It remained where it had always been, unmoving, unarmed, unwelcome, unforgettable. And as more species began to wake in the night, screaming names they had never learned, the galaxy finally understood. This wasn't retaliation, it was consequence. The decision to board the human ship wasn't unanimous. It was desperation. A crew of 9 scientists, diplomats, one poet, crossed the silence between their own trembling vessel and the monolith of memory waiting in low planetary orbit. As they stepped into the docking bay, gravity greeted them gently. Lights flickered on, not with motion sensors, but, as one diplomat whispered, recognition, no guards, no weapons, no challenge, just the hum of existence. They walked through corridors carved in impossible symmetry. The walls weren't metallic, more like compressed history, tactile, strange. Some parts felt warm, others mournful. One scientist reached out. His fingertips brushed a surface that shifted from cold steel to soft clay under touch. It whispered a lullaby in a language he didn't know, but his heart did. Earthborn sleep, star-forged breath, remember us when memory wept. They passed murals that changed as they moved. One showed a cradle crumbling into ash. Another, a planet splitting, not from bombs, but sorrow. Another, a tree growing where a battlefield once lay. At the core of the ship, they found a chamber, vast, still, silent, and in the center, a chair, simple, worn, human. In it, a man, or what remained of one. He sat upright, spine straight, eyes closed as if merely resting. His body preserved not by machinery, but by purpose. Skin pale, hair white, lips curved in the faintest echo of peace. The poet fell to her knees. She whispered, "He's not dead. He's finished." Around him stood 42 pedestals, on each a plaque, not written in Terran script, but in the languages of 42 alien civilizations. Civilizations long gone or changed beyond recognition. Each plaque contained only a few sentences. We saw them falling and turned our backs. Forgive what we called justice. We called them savages, but we feared they would remember we were worse. Forgive our silence. Forgive our science. Forgive our fear. The delegation read each one. None of the plaques were dated, none signed. One diplomat, the youngest, asked, "Were these sent?" The answer came not from a voice, but from the air itself, cooling slightly. A sense of no. "These were never sent," the ship itself whispered, "but we kept them anyway." From the ceiling, a crystalline arc began to descend. A hologram shimmered to life above the man's still body. A Terran, mid-age, eyes dark, hair dusted with gray, a slow breath, a voice, clear, gentle, vast. "If you are here, then you chose to witness. We were the children of war, forged not by choice but by repetition. We were broken, and then broke others, and then learned to hold the breaking. We built this vessel not to invade, but to carry weight, to remember." Images spiraled behind the hologram, flickers of memory, a child huddled in rubble, clutching a book, an old woman teaching songs to a dying AI, a refugee ship turned into a garden, a Terran soldier setting down his weapon to bury the bones of his enemies. The voice continued, "The galaxy forgot its crimes. We archived them. The galaxy erased its victims. We named them. This was our final doctrine, not vengeance, not conquest. Memory." The crew stood in silence. One scientist, trembling, asked the air, "Why show us this now?" The hologram turned toward her. "Because we saw what comes next." The images stopped. A final one remained. Not war, not peace, but a mirror. It reflected the boarding crew, all of them, but not as they were, as they could be, better or worse. Your species wrote its own beginnings in the language of ambition, but how does it write its ends? You stand in a ship not of metal, but of choice. We chose to carry burden. Will you? The hologram dimmed. The chamber darkened. Only the seated man remained, untouched by time, untouched by sorrow. The poet placed a flower at his feet, a blossom grown in their ship's hydroponics bay. Fragile, blue. It shimmered for a moment, then turned silver. Accepted. They returned to their vessel without words. None of them would sleep again without remembering that room, or that voice, or that question. We were the children of war. We learned. Did you? The ship dimmed, not slowly, intentionally. Its lights faded, not like power loss, but like someone closing a book they'd finished reading. Systems powered down with reverence. The last pulse from its core was not an energy surge, but a heartbeat. One, final, beat, and then silence. Except for the broadcast. No fanfare, no signature, just a phrase. You may forget what we look like, but you won't forget what you did. Across star systems, the transmission was received simultaneously, regardless of distance or delay. It bypassed all encryption. It ignored all firewalls. Then came the coordinates, a set of numbers, simple, stark. Most didn't recognize them, but those who did froze. The coordinates led to the Council Core repository, its deepest, most sacred archive, off limits to all but top-level officials, generations of classified history sealed beyond reach. And yet, the broadcast opened it, unredacted, unrestricted. Every order, every cover-up, every silent war, the genocide on Talenka 4, the viral sterilization of the Karathi nurseries, the silencing of pre-sapient colonies deemed inefficient, and beneath it all, one name kept appearing in the hidden margins, Earth. Each report referenced their refusal to obey, each suppression attempt labeled justified containment, and one final document, dated centuries ago, stamped with the Council's highest authority. Should humanity re-emerge, they must be erased, not because of threat, but because they remember too well. The galaxy changed in hours, not through riots, not through war, but through grief. Broadcasts stopped. Governments fell, not because they were overthrown, but because they laid themselves down. Ministers stepped aside. Generals went quiet. Surveillance grids went dark, not in protest, but in remorse. Children began placing candles on doorsteps, not for their own dead, but for Earth's. Cities renamed their central squares. Witness Plaza, Memory Ring, Terran Fold. A poet on Virex Delta painted a mural of a sleeping starship. Underneath, she wrote, "We feared their return. We should have feared their absence." Entire species began collective fasts, not to punish themselves, to listen. The memory ship was never seen again. No trace on long-range scans. No residual gravity trail. Nothing. As if it had never existed at all. And yet, every year on the anniversary of the broadcast, strange phenomena returned. A power outage that spelled names in the dark. An aurora over gas giants shaped like Terran glyphs. A child drawing symbols they never learned. One council historian, one of the few who remained in office, stood before the ruins of the assembly hall and whispered, "We asked what humanity would do if we pushed them too far." They didn't rage. They didn't retaliate. They remembered. And then they offered us the mirror. Empires, once drunk on conquest, adopted new laws. One clause appeared in every rewritten constitution. No species shall erase another's memory. It didn't matter if Earth would return, because now every civilization knew. Earth didn't need to. They had already left the question behind, and now the galaxy had to live with the answer. Some say it was just a ship, a highly advanced construct, a machine with memory banks and an agenda. A final message from a forgotten species who once defied the stars. Others say it was something more. Not a vessel, but a soul. Not a creation, but a continuation. They say the ship that arrived bore no crew because the crew had become the ship. Because Earth, whatever remained of it, no longer sent emissaries. It sent witnesses. And the vessel, whatever name it once had, was now only that, the embodiment of remembering. In the cycles that followed, the debate never stopped. Was it vengeance? Was it grief? Was it some final warning from a civilization tired of being underestimated? Or was it just the natural end of forgetting? No answer came, but the galaxy changed. You could chart it across species and borders. Militaries dissolved, not because of treaties, but because soldiers resigned without speaking. Whole sectors reclassified regions once deemed conquerable as untouchable. Museums grew, filled with history that had once been sealed, now opened, now sacred. Children were taught the names of lost cultures, not their own, but Earth's. 100 new languages were recovered from fragments. The phrase, "we asked nicely," was translated into 47 dialects and carved above city gates across planets once ruled by empires. Then came the holiday. It wasn't proposed by a government. It wasn't voted on. It happened. 1 year after the memory ship vanished, entire planetary networks went offline for exactly 1 hour. No broadcasts, no transports, no movement, just silence. Not ordered, not coordinated, just remembered. It became known as Remembrance Day. Every year, every species, no matter their world, their evolution, their politics, observed it. They didn't understand Earth, but they understood silence. And in that silence, something changed. Some swore they heard it, a voice, distant, not loud, not threatening, just a word, a question. Help! And in the quiet that followed, in the hush of stars and breath held in awe, came the reply. Received. No one could say who spoke, but everyone knew who was listening. The myths bloomed. They whispered of a planet that became a prayer, of a ship that carried more than data. It carried memory, guilt, mercy. They said the galaxy had committed many sins, but forgetting Earth had been the greatest. Not because Earth was powerful, but because Earth was what came next. After fire, after extinction, after loss. The ship had not come to punish. It had come to test. And the test was not one of war. It was of remembrance. Those who remembered what they had done, what they had ignored, what they had justified, those survived. The rest vanished, not in flame, but in silence. One council archivist recorded this in her final log. We feared Earth would return with fleets. They sent a child. We feared weapons. They sent stories. We feared retribution. They gave us mirrors. The ship never reappeared, but every so often someone would claim to see it, not in the sky, but in a dream, a curved hull made of regret, a library built from extinction, a presence that asked only one thing, do you remember now? And those who answered yes woke weeping, not in sorrow, in relief. Centuries passed, the stars grew colder, new alliances formed, old wars faded, but once a year, across 1,000 civilizations, everything paused. Ships halted, music stopped, machines turned quiet, an hour of silence, an hour of reverence, not for conquest, not for Earth, but for the memory that kept them human, whatever they were. And in that hour, in the hush between planets, the cosmos held its breath. And someone always whispered, help. And someone always replied, received.